August 19, 2017, Fargo, North Dakota. It was the kind of evening that feels unfinished. The air was still warm, but summer was already starting to loosen its grip. Inside a modest apartment building, life moved quietly. Doors opening, footsteps on stairs, televisions murmuring behind thin walls. 22-year-old Savanna LaFontaine-Greywind was 8 months pregnant. She was not hiding. She was not afraid. She was preparing. Her family described her as soft-spoken but strong. She was excited. The baby's clothes were ready. The crib was assembled. There were plans for the future. Ordinary, beautiful plans that revolve around a new life entering the world. She lived upstairs with her parents. Below her lived a couple, Brooke and William Hoehn. Neighbors, nothing more. At least that's what everyone believed. That evening, Brooke asked Savanna for a small favor. She needed help sewing a dress. It was simple, casual, harmless. Savanna told her mother she was going downstairs for just a few minutes. Those were the last words her family heard before everything changed. Minutes passed, then an hour. Her phone stopped responding. There were no screams, no sounds of struggle, no broken furniture, no sign of forced entry. Because Savanna hadn't been taken from the outside, she had walked into the danger herself. At first, it didn't look like a crime. People disappear for reasons that are mundane. Arguments, stress, fear of responsibility. Maybe she left. Maybe she needed space. But something didn't fit. Savanna was 8 months pregnant. She wasn't the type to vanish. She had no history of running away, no unresolved conflict, no signs of instability. And then there was something else. Brooke had been telling people she was pregnant too. For months, she had shown pictures, posted updates, talked about doctor's visits, shared ultrasound images. But no one had ever seen her with a visibly pregnant body. No hospital records confirmed her pregnancy. No doctor could verify her claims. Yet suddenly, just days after Savanna disappeared, Brooke announced she had given birth, at home, privately, to a healthy baby girl. No hospital, no witnesses, no paperwork, just a newborn in the apartment downstairs. And upstairs, a missing woman who should have been days away from delivering her own child. When police began knocking on doors, Brooke appeared calm. William stood beside her. They said they hadn't seen Savanna that night. They said she never came down. They said they didn't know anything. But something in the timeline felt wrong. Savanna was last seen entering their apartment, and she never came out. The building was small, quiet, intimate. Sound traveled through the walls. It is difficult to imagine something violent happening in that space without someone hearing it. Unless it was planned. Unless it was controlled. Unless the person responsible had already imagined every step. As the hours turned into days, tension thickened. Savanna's family refused to believe she had left willingly. They searched. They pleaded. They organized vigils. Meanwhile, downstairs, a newborn slept in a crib. A newborn that, according to Brooke, had been inside her body just days earlier. But doctors would later confirm something chilling. Brooke had not recently given birth, which raised a single terrifying question. If the baby wasn't hers, then where did she come from? The most disturbing part of this case is not just the violence that followed. It is proximity. Savanna did not meet a stranger in a dark parking lot. She did not accept a ride from an unknown predator. She walked down a familiar staircase, to a neighbor, to someone who smiled at her in the hallway, to someone who knew she was pregnant, to someone who wanted what she had. And sometimes, the most dangerous place is not far away. Sometimes, it is one floor below you. Before Savanna disappeared, Brooke Cruz had already built a story. Not in one day, not in one lie, over months. She told friends she was pregnant. She told family she was expecting. She shared ultrasound images. She described doctor's visits. She spoke about cravings, back pain, fatigue. The performance was consistent, but there was something unusual. No one could clearly remember seeing her physically pregnant. There were no baby showers organized by close friends. No photos that showed a growing stomach month by month. No hospital bracelets. No public appointments. Only words. And words, when repeated long enough, begin to feel real. Psychologists sometimes describe a phenomenon where a person becomes trapped inside their own fabrication. A lie told to impress. A lie told to hold on to someone. A lie told to avoid shame. And then the lie grows teeth. Brooke's relationship with William Hoehn was unstable. There were arguments, there were breakups, there were reconciliations. A pregnancy can change dynamics. A pregnancy can create permanence. A pregnancy can prevent someone from leaving. At least that may have been the belief. Friends later said Brooke had claimed previous miscarriages. Each time, the story ended in tragedy. Each time, sympathy followed. Each time, attention was restored. But this time, she went further. She allowed the pregnancy narrative to reach its final stage. The due date was approaching. People expected a baby. And expectations can be dangerous when built on fiction. On August 19, when Savanna walked downstairs, Brooke was facing a deadline. The illusion was about to collapse. There are moments in criminal psychology where pressure meets fantasy and something fractures. Because when reality threatens exposure, some individuals do not confess, they escalate. After Savanna vanished, Brooke posted nothing publicly for a short period. Then came the announcement. She had given birth, at home, privately. She described labor. She described pain. She described holding the baby for the first time. Her voice was calm. But medically, something was impossible. Women who give birth experience physiological signs, hormonal changes, physical trauma, postpartum recovery. When authorities later examined Brooke, doctors concluded she had not recently delivered a child. The body does not lie, even when the mind does. Meanwhile, William Hoehn remained beside her. His role remains one of the most debated aspects of the case. Did he know the pregnancy was fake? Did he believe her? Did he suspect something was wrong when a newborn appeared without a hospital visit? Or did he choose not to ask questions? Silence can be complicity, or it can be denial, and sometimes it is fear. Inside the apartment, investigators would later discover signs of cleaning, carpet that had been treated, furniture rearranged, bleach, attempts to erase something that had already happened. But erasing physical traces does not erase timelines. Savanna had entered that apartment alive, and the next time anyone saw her, she would be found in a river. There is something uniquely disturbing about crimes driven by identity theft of motherhood. This was not random violence. This was targeted. Savanna was visibly pregnant. She represented something Brooke could not biologically produce at that moment, but desperately wanted others to believe she had. And when fantasy collided with another woman's reality, only one could remain. The illusion demanded a sacrifice. When police questioned Brooke again, inconsistencies multiplied. Details shifted, timelines blurred, explanations contradicted earlier statements. The story no longer held together. And pressure changes people. Under scrutiny, cracks appear. Under scrutiny, illusions collapse. And beneath the illusion, something far darker was waiting.
On August 27, 2017, 8 days after Savanna disappeared, the Red River moved slowly under a gray North Dakota sky. Kayakers were passing through a quiet stretch of water. What they saw at first did not look human. It was wrapped in plastic, partially submerged, heavy. When authorities arrived and pulled it from the water, the shape became unmistakable. It was Savanna LaFontaine-Greywind. She had been weighted down, bound, discarded. The river did not hide her forever. It never does. The autopsy confirmed what investigators already feared. Savanna had been strangled, but that was not the detail that would define this case. There was a large incision across her abdomen. Her baby had been removed. This was not an accident. This was not panic. This was surgical in intention, even if not in skill. The act required time, control, proximity. It required someone who was not afraid to cross a line that most human beings would never even approach in imagination. Fetal abduction cases are rare. When they occur, they follow a disturbing pattern. The perpetrator often pretends to be pregnant, builds a narrative, creates anticipation, and when the lie approaches exposure, violence replaces confession. Investigators now understood what they were looking at. Savanna had not been kidnapped for ransom. She had not been attacked randomly. She had been selected. Because she was pregnant. Because she lived upstairs. Because she trusted the wrong door. Back at the apartment building, police presence intensified. Brooke Cruz still claimed she had delivered her baby at home, but now there was a body in the river, and there was a newborn in her apartment. DNA testing was no longer optional. It was immediate. The infant girl was taken into protective custody. Within hours, the results would confirm what everyone feared and hoped at the same time. The baby was Savanna's. She was alive. The brutality of the act collided with something almost impossible. The child had survived. Despite being removed from her mother's body under violent circumstances, despite the absence of medical supervision at birth, despite everything, she was breathing, crying, alive. It is difficult to reconcile those two realities at once. A mother murdered, a baby saved. When confronted with the discovery of Savanna's body, Brooke's composure shifted. Small inconsistencies became fractures. Statements no longer aligned, and investigators began reconstructing the final moments inside that apartment. Savanna had gone downstairs willingly. There were no signs she expected violence. At some point, she was overpowered, strangled. The act of removing the baby came after, which means this was not about killing first. It was about taking. The homicide ensured silence. The true objective was the child. William Hoehn's position became increasingly complicated. Phone records, movements, statements. Did he return home while Savanna's body was still inside? Did he see blood? Did he assist in disposal? Or did he look at the newborn and choose not to question how she arrived? In criminal investigations, omission can be as revealing as action. The river forced truth into daylight. It turned suspicion into evidence. And once evidence speaks, narratives collapse. Brooke Cruz was arrested. William Hoehn was arrested. The illusion was over. What remained was something far darker than a lie. It was premeditated violence built on obsession. And at its center, a single unbearable fact. Savanna had trusted her neighbor. Interrogation rooms are designed for one purpose: silence. Neutral walls, a metal table, fluorescent light that never softens. When Brooke Cruz sat down across from investigators, the illusion was already fractured, but she was still trying to hold it together. At first, her voice was steady. She repeated the same story. She had been birthed at home.
They're working with the people that they need to get the proper red tape cleared and things like that.
Alone, unexpectedly. She panicked, but everything turned out fine. She insisted the baby was hers, even after being told that Savanna's body had been recovered from the river, even after being informed that DNA testing was underway. Denial can be powerful, especially when a lie has been rehearsed for months. Investigators did not rush. They let silence do the work. They asked small questions. When did labor begin? How long did it last? Where's the placenta? Why was there no medical follow-up? Why did neighbors not hear anything? Details matter, and fabricated stories collapse under detail. Her timeline shifted. Minutes became hours. Certainty became, I think. Confidence became hesitation. Meanwhile, forensic evidence from the apartment was being processed. Blood traces had been cleaned, but not erased. Chemical luminol reacts with iron in blood, even after attempts to wash it away. Patterns began to appear. On the floor, on fabric, in places inconsistent with childbirth. This was not a delivery scene. It was a struggle scene. William Hoehn was questioned separately. His responses were less emotional, more distant. He claimed he did not know the pregnancy was fake. He claimed he believed Brooke. He claimed he came home to find a baby already there. But investigators confronted him with timing inconsistencies, phone data, text messages, movements in and out of the apartment. It became increasingly difficult to maintain ignorance as a defense, because even if he had not committed the physical act, the aftermath required participation. A body had to be moved. A narrative had to be supported. Silence had to be chosen. Eventually, Brooke's resistance weakened. The weight of evidence is not loud. It accumulates, and then it becomes inescapable. She admitted that Savanna had come downstairs. She admitted there was an argument. She admitted she strangled her. But the most disturbing admission came next. She had cut the baby from Savanna's body. Not in panic, not accidentally, but intentionally. Because she wanted the child. Because she had promised a baby. Because the lie had reached its deadline. There is something chilling about motive that is not rooted in rage, not revenge, not jealousy, but entitlement. Brooke did not express hatred towards Savanna. She expressed desire. Desire to be seen as a mother. Desire to present a newborn to the world. And when reality refused to cooperate, she reshaped it through violence. Prosecutors would later argue premeditation. She invited Savanna downstairs. She isolated her. She prepared. She cleaned afterward. She attempted to dispose of the body in the river. Each step required decision-making. Each step required continuation. At any moment, she could have stopped. She did not. William Hoehn maintained that he was not present during the killing. However, he admitted to helping dispose of the body. He admitted to lying to investigators initially, which shifted his role from ignorance to participation. In criminal law, presence is not always required for guilt. Assistance after the fact can carry its own weight. When charges were formally filed, the case became national news. A pregnant woman murdered, a baby cut from her womb, a neighbor responsible. The brutality was undeniable, but so was the survival of the child, and that survival would shape the courtroom. Brooke Cruz eventually pleaded guilty to murder and kidnapping. William Hoehn was convicted for his role in the crime and concealment. Sentences followed. Decades in prison, time measured in years that will never return what was taken. Interrogation rooms reveal something fundamental. When the illusion ends, what remains is choice. And in this case, every critical moment was a choice. To lie, to escalate, to harm, to conceal. The fantasy of motherhood had required a body, and Savanna paid the price.
Courtrooms are different from interrogation rooms. They are not built for confession. They are built for judgment. By the time the case of Savanna LaFontaine-Greywind reached court in 2018, the country already knew the outline of the crime. But court is not about headlines. It is about evidence and consequences. Brooke Cruz chose not to take the case to trial. Instead, she entered a guilty plea. She admitted to intentional murder. She admitted to conspiracy. She admitted to cutting Savanna's baby from her body. There was no dramatic courtroom cross-examination, no surprise witness, no jury deliberation. Just a formal acknowledgement of horror. But guilty pleas do not erase impact. They only accelerate sentencing. In February 2018, the judge handed down the sentence. Life in prison without the possibility of parole. No future appeals for early release. No second chance. In North Dakota, that is the maximum penalty short of capital punishment. The courtroom was silent as the sentence was read. Savanna's family was there. They did not celebrate. There is no victory in this kind of justice, only finality. William Hoehn chose a different path. He went to trial. Prosecutors argued he participated in disposing of Savanna's body. They argued he knew the truth. They argued that even if he did not commit the killing, he helped protect it. The defense claimed he was manipulated, that he was shocked, that he did not fully understand what had happened. The jury deliberated.
And they convicted him of conspiracy to commit murder and providing false information. He was sentenced to life in prison. 2 people, 2 life sentences, 1 irreversible act. But the legal story did not end there. In 2019, the North Dakota Supreme Court overturned William Hoehn's murder conspiracy conviction, ruling there was insufficient evidence that he planned the killing in advance. He later accepted a plea agreement for aiding an offender. His sentence was reduced. Still prison, still consequences, but not life. The law narrowed its focus. It distinguished between participation in murder and assistance after. For Savanna's family, that legal nuance did not change loss. At the center of everything was the child. The baby girl survived. She was placed in the care of Savanna's family. She grew up knowing her mother's name, knowing her story, knowing that her life began in violence, but continued in love. Her survival changed the narrative. Without her, this would be only a story about brutality. With her, it became something else. Proof that even inside the darkest crimes, life can persist. Savanna LaFontaine-Greywind was 22 years old, 8 months pregnant, living above the people who would kill her. Her trust was ordinary. Her mistake was human. The cruelty she encountered was not. The story ended with a verdict, but the memory did not. What do you think is the most chilling part of this case?
Thank you to everyone who watched the video all the way to the end. Our team put a lot of effort into creating it. If you enjoyed it, please give us a like and subscribe to our channel. It's a huge motivation for us to work even harder and release new videos faster.